the situation, we have a fairly serious flooding situation that's going to unfold across the mid-Atlantic. Right now, this is the water vapor imagery. So this shows mid and upper level water vapor. And this swirl that you see right here across the Tennessee Valley, this is the remnant low associated with Ida. The problem is we have a cold front that is also moving across the Great Lakes. And this cold front is going to team up with the moisture from Ida and produce some significant flooding across the northern part of the mid-Atlantic. So these two weather systems are going to converge to produce catastrophic flooding in some cases, actually. What I wanted to show you here is this is what's called precipitable water in the atmosphere, the amount of moisture that could be squeezed out in the atmosphere with the showers. And you can see the numbers here. This is in inches, 1.8 inches across Maryland right now. That's why it feels so very muggy outside across the mid-Atlantic. But this bullseye associated with the storm system, that's 2.2 inches of water. And if we look at climatology, here we are at the very end of August into early September. And the highest amount of moisture that we've seen since these records have been kept since the 1950s is about 2.3 inches of water. So the atmosphere is about the most moist it could potentially be at the very end of August and the very early part of September. That is going to spell some pretty serious situation. Going into this particular event here across the mid-Atlantic, this is the 30-day rainfall departure for the month of August. And the entire state of Pennsylvania has seen more rain than average, 2 to 3 inches above average, even across parts of the DC area into Northern Virginia. The only spots that have seen just near average rainfall is here across just west of Interstate 81, across the mountains, the Allegheny Mountains here. But we're going into this particular event with above average rainfall. And if we look at the flash flood guidance, so basically what this is showing is in a 12-hour period, how much rain is needed to produce flash flooding. Well, in Western Pennsylvania, that number is roughly about an inch to an inch and a half. And once we look east along the Allegheny Plateau and even further east, what that number is about 1.5 to 2.5 inches of rain. And if we go further, expand the view a bit into parts of Maryland and New Jersey, up and through the Philadelphia area, you can see these numbers are generally around 1.5 to 3.5 inches of rain needed to produce flash flooding. Well, ultimately, we are going to see in this particular, I'll go back to this map, this particular zone from the Laurel Highlands, Western Maryland, all the way into southern Pennsylvania, up and through the Philadelphia area, northern New Jersey, is going to get hit with 4 to 9 inches of rain. There is going to be widespread flooding. This situation also will produce, especially in the higher terrain, when you get 4 to 8 inches of rain in 6 to 8 hours periods, there are going to be some landslides in certain spots and road closures. And the biggest problem, besides the flash flooding that's going to occur, and the heaviest rain is going to be from about 7 a.m. Wednesday all the way through the early part of the evening. That's when the heaviest rain is going to occur. And if we look at some of the rivers, that here is Wills Creek near Cumberland, Maryland. It's going to be in the minor flood stage by Wednesday night, early Thursday. This is the Potomac River in Cumberland. It's going to, now the Potomac River begins in Western Maryland and ends in the DC area. But even in the headwaters close to Cumberland, it's going to peak at 16.6 feet, which is minor flooding. As we go further down here, a couple of other spots, the Conococheague Creek near Hagerstown is going to see major flooding in that particular area. So all the creeks and streams are going to be out of their banks. And you can see the peak is right at Thursday afternoon, because it takes a while for that water to drain into the river system and the creeks. So that's why there's a delay between when the heaviest rain ends and when we actually have flash flooding. into Pennsylvania, Harrisburg area. Here is the Susquehanna River, and the forecast in Susquehanna and Harrisburg is very close to action stage. Action stage basically means they prepare for the potential for flooding, but we're not actually going to see flooding in downtown Harrisburg. But some smaller creeks, moderate flooding. This is a creek near Hodgetown, in just west of Harrisburg. There's a couple of other places, such as the Yellow Breeches Creek near Camp Hill. There's moderate flooding. So all these small creeks and streams are going to be overflowing their banks. And you can see that the peak for the flash flooding on these creeks that drain into the major river systems, again, will be delayed Thursday during the day. So we have the flash flooding and the potential for mudslides during the day Wednesday. And then on Thursday, what we have here is these rivers that'll be cresting as all the water and the runoff goes into these rivers and creeks and streams and so forth. So that'll be the second danger that develops with this particular system. And if there's any particular spot that you want me to hone in on, and I'll go back to some of these other weather service pages, I can definitely look up your location and see where the river flooding is expected and how much rain. But downwind of the Potomac River in Washington, D.C. near Little Falls is going to see moderate flooding, and that will be late Thursday into Friday, of course, because the Potomac starts in western Maryland and drains down into Washington, D.C. So the further down the river you are, the later the flooding is going to develop. So we're going to see pictures of flash flooding, or well, not flash flooding, but river flooding late Thursday into Friday in the Washington, D.C. area near Little Falls. And many of these other small creeks and streams will see flash flooding. It's just going to be a very dangerous situation as we go through time during this particular event, because there's so much moisture associated with this particular storm system. And let me go into the Philadelphia area and look at the rivers and where they're expected to crest here. So this is, I'm just choosing a couple of random ones. This is the Skyhole River near Philadelphia. That's minor flooding during the afternoon on Thursday, about 1.1 feet above flood stage in that particular area. Here's King of Prussia. We're going to see moderate flooding in Norristown, as well as Trenton. All these streams and creeks are going to see flash flooding. So if you know anybody that lives in not only a flash flooding prone area with poor drainage, but if you know anybody that lives near any of these rivers, let them know that they are going to see flooding from this particular event. It's a very serious situation. Let me go back to, I want to hone in a little bit on the Cumberland area and talk a little bit about landslides here. Back in 2018 in September, it was a very wet stretch of time in Cumberland, where there was 5 inches of rain in the beginning of the month, and there was only about 2.5 inches of rain towards the end of the month, but the grand total for the month was 13.49 inches. So leading up to this particular event at the end of September that I'm going to talk about, the ground had been saturated from previous rainfall, and that produced a total of 13.49 inches of rain. Well, as we saw here in this particular graphic, in the last 30 days, Allegheny County has been almost 2 inches above average. Well, in this particular event at the end of September, there was landslides, at least 5 landslides in that county from rainfall that had totaled 4.81 inches in the last 7 days. So this particular event is a good analog to what can happen when you get that much rain following a stretch of wet weather. So I do expect, unfortunately, especially again in these exposed areas of the Appalachian Mountains, where you have some steep slopes and you have a lot of mud, well, dirt that would become mud when it gets wet. You have the potential for landslides. And I honestly think that there are going to be several landslides with this particular event. And an analog to that would be 2018. The depression right now is over the Tennessee Valley. It's about 65 miles to the northeast of Huntsville, and it's moving northeast at about 17 miles per hour. And earlier, this is the Weather Prediction Center, where they issue excessive rainfall outlooks. Had a moderate risk over the Mid-Atlantic, but now it's a high risk because we're talking, like I said, 4 to 8 inches of rain. And unfortunately, it's going to fall. I wouldn't be surprised if many schools are closed tomorrow, because there's going to be widespread road closures, especially across southern Pennsylvania, western Maryland, all the way in through eastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey. I think that especially in areas with steep terrain, it'll be very difficult for some of the school buses to actually get around in the afternoon, especially with roads that are washed out. So I think it's a huge danger for the kids to go to school tomorrow because of this flash flooding risk that is developing here across the Mid-Atlantic. Now, not only do we have that aspect of the storm with the heavy rain, but we also have the risk for severe weather. And what I'm going to show you is, don't normally like to show forecast models, but I'm just going to show this particular one just to show the track of the storm, because most of the information is about the same. So the track of the storm tomorrow evening takes the center, low pressure up and through Pennsylvania. So we have the heaviest rainfall that shifts from the Appalachian Mountains into eastern Pennsylvania tomorrow evening. But anytime, especially with a tropical system, and this particular tropical system is linking up with the cold front, south and east of that center of circulation, what you get is winds that change direction with height. And you have the capabilities with warm, it's a warm, moist air mass all across the Mid-Atlantic, but south and east of the system, you have a lot of turning with height. So what we are going to see is in this particular zone that's not highlighted with the highest amount of rainfall, and I'm showing you the Washington, D.C. area through southern Pennsylvania, probably Philly, north is Philly, Atlantic City down to Richmond. This zone is going to be ripe for thunderstorms that move southeast to northwest and produce a couple of tornadoes. So we are going to have a severe weather threat unfold south of the heavy rain zone across eastern Pennsylvania. So this, in the Mid-Atlantic, not only do we have the flooding, and these particular storms are going to drop heavy rain in a short period of time, which will cause flash flooding. The best risk, though, for river flooding, because of the steady nature of the heavy rain, will be from basically Interstate 70 northward into Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And then this particular storm system also goes up into New England and produces some heavy rain. I think Boston had its record wettest, it was July on record. It's been very wet in eastern New England, so there's going to be flooding in Boston. And this particular area just got hit by Henri, the tropical system that moved northward, and brought the heavy rain into New England a couple weeks ago. So we are going to see flooding across New England as well. So the last thing I wanted to mention with this particular storm system is we have a twofold dangerous flooding situation: the flash flooding that develops with the rain, and then the delay with the river flooding that's going to happen on late Thursday, depending on where you are, late Thursday into Friday. And then finally, the water levels start to recede a bit. But we have a stretch of very quiet weather going into the holiday weekend, the Labor Day weekend, with a saturated ground, the entire Mid-Atlantic having a completely saturated ground from all this rain. We get this high pressure from Canada that moves in with somewhat drier air and lower dew points. So we finally get a break from the heat and the humidity. But with this high pressure moving in, I guarantee you each night going in through the weekend, we are going to have dense radiation fog develop, and it's going to limit visibility significantly, especially in those deeper valleys between the mountain ridges in the Appalachians. But I think it'll be a problem even closer to the Interstate 95 corridor. But I think the greatest threat will be west of 95 just because of the nature of the terrain. But there's going to be dense fog each morning through the holiday weekend. So for folks traveling this weekend, the optimal time for the fog will be between about 4 a.m. and 10 a.m. Early in the morning. Fortunately, most people when they get out of town are going to be leaving Friday afternoon and evening when it's not an issue, but those that leave early on Saturday to get to their destination, if they leave early enough before 10 a.m., there's going to be some fog. So that's a concern for traveling purposes afterwards. And of course, it's difficult to see a flooded roadway, which I'm pretty sure that there will be some roads that are still closed through the early part of the weekend. So that's the situation here unfolding. And let me go back. Yep. Okay. Nobody has joined so far, but does anybody have any particular questions?
Not me. Chad, very good job. Thank you so much for presenting all this very detailed information about what we can expect this weekend and coming forward.
Absolutely, Chad.
Excuse me. Yeah, I have a question. I'm down here in Fredericksburg, Virginia, on the banks of the Rappahannock.
Okay.
So what can we expect in the way of wind and thunderstorms, particularly the direction of the wind?
Yeah, tomorrow the winds will be out of the east. I don't think that the winds are going to be that much of a concern. I think during the day, the winds will probably be out of the east at about 5 to 15. It'll be when you get those gusty thunderstorms that come through Fredericksburg, and the potential for a tornado as well. But let me go into this particular graphic. Let me look in the Fredericksburg area to see about the potential for flooding here. So, there's the Rappahannock River. Not expected to peak at 10 feet. So not expecting any significant flooding. Also, the Rappahannock above Fredericksburg will be close to action stage. So the main concern in Fredericksburg will be those thunderstorms that produce the tornadoes, and the optimal time for that would be during the mid to late afternoon tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think in your area, because of the track of the storm being to the north and east actually, here's an easier graphic for me to look at that shows here it is. Okay, this is just an easier way to visualize the storm. This is another one. So with the track of the storm being to your north, up towards Washington, D.C., the track of the low pressure, what's going to happen is I do think that there will be a couple of breaks in the overcast in the Fredericksburg area tomorrow, particularly during the early part of the morning to the mid-morning. Mm-hmm. And then it'll cloud up pretty quickly, and then there will be those rounds of showers and storms. But flash flooding will be the biggest concern in Fredericksburg, as well as the threat for a tornado during the late morning to late afternoon time frame.
Oh, okay. And they'd be coming from the southeast?
The storms would be coming in from the southwest.
Southwest.
The wind itself will be coming out of the southeast, mm-hmm. But the actual moisture will be coming in from the southwest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
the surface winds would be from the southeast then?
Southeast, and then they would switch to the southwest.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Storm passes.
We lose a lot of trees down here.
Yeah, because of the severe weather, right? Yeah, Fredericksburg is a hotspot for severe weather, especially. Another thing to consider too, with the track of the storm, the low going right over, probably somewhere between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, is you're very close to what's called the, because this low is teaming up with the cold front, the it's called the triple point. It's where the low pressure and the warm and cold front meet. There is the threat there. You're in an ideal spot, unfortunately, for the threat for a tornado. You usually see tornadoes are more common with tropical systems than severe thunderstorms that produce hail. Well, because in a tropical system, you don't have that cold upper levels with the tropical system. The entire cloud layer is above freezing. So the severe weather threat is not hail with the tropical system, but the gusty winds and the tornadoes. And these tornadoes and tropical systems don't usually last more than about 5 or 10 minutes. They're very fast moving systems. So what you're going to see is the sky get dark to your south and west. You'll get a shower, like a heavy shower that moves through, another break in the overcast and these rounds of showers. But ultimately, when that low gets closer to you during the early afternoon is the best threat for severe weather. And I guarantee there will be a tornado watch issued for the DC, Northern Virginia area tomorrow ahead of the system. It just comes with the territory with these tropical systems that they're known for producing tornadoes. And I would expect that the greatest threat would be during the early to mid-afternoon. And then,
okay, yeah, great. Because we got the weather radio, and it's spot on. They really let us know when something's heading our way. So
yeah, they're pretty good with the warnings. And I would imagine too that the Weather Service, when they issue these warnings, they issue what are called polygon warnings. Let me see if I can find if there's one anywhere in the country. Am I still sharing my screen? No, I'm not sharing my screen. Okay. All right. Yeah, let me share my screen here real quick so I can show you what's going on. There's a warning in North Carolina that I can just show you as an example. So let me hit share screen. You could probably right now see a radar image.
oh yeah,
Very, very nice. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, so this is the center of the storm is in right over by animate. I can animate this particular. If you see the counterclockwise swirl, this is the center of Ida, what's left of it, moving across Tennessee, moving northeast. And then out ahead of it, we have severe weather developing in North Carolina right now. And these are what are called polygons that the Weather Service issues for severe weather. Yeah. So I think tomorrow, because of the nature of the system, these polygons are going to be rather large, because once a storm develops and tracks north and east, there's a good chance that it's not going to weaken. So these tornado warnings will probably be, well, they can develop on these tornadoes can develop on short notice, but these warnings stretch over a long period of time. So if you're in the upper part of the cone of a particular warning, you'll have a lot of lead time. That's why these polygons are usually pretty large with these systems, because the Weather Service understands that with these tropical systems, once a storm develops and tracks over a certain area, it's not going to weaken considerably at all, because it's associated with a tropical system, and there's just enough energy in the atmosphere and enough confidence that these storms with potential tornadoes will continue. So you will see large polygons. Weather Service will issue them tomorrow to give enough lead time to the folks underneath these warnings. I think it's just where these particular tornadoes develop. Not saying there's going to be an outbreak of tornadoes that are going to flatten trees and buildings everywhere, because with tropical systems they're fairly isolated. I think, well, with Hurricane Ivan back in 2004, there were several tornadoes along the Interstate 81 corridor, which is rare for I-81. But I would expect tomorrow, because this storm is now a depression, a low pressure, that the coverage of the tornadoes would be more isolated to widely scattered than widespread. because of the nature of the storm being just down to a depression at that point. But basically, when you see, or I should say, when you do see some breaks in the clouds tomorrow, that's a sign that the atmosphere is getting a little bit more juiced. I would expect that there will be a couple of breaks in the clouds, and this is your particular area down in Fredericksburg. You're just in a very ripe spot for severe weather climatologically as well, and you're close to the triple point. So I do expect there will be severe weather, unfortunately, in your area.
Okay, well, great. Hey, thanks for the heads up. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Looks like we have 7 minutes left here. I just want to stop sharing it. I just stop sharing every now and then just to see if there's any. I have to admit people into the room if they, into the Zoom session. And I don't think I could see it if I'm sharing my screen, but nobody has signed on, so we're good. In the 2021, I think, and the 2022 Almanac, I had forecasted September 1st and 2nd for there to be showers in the Mid-Atlantic, so I'm happy about that I had actually forecasted the rain. So that's good news. And I had thought, see, we break it down in the Almanac with the severe weather section at the bottom of each page, and I had September 1st and 2nd, heavy rain, severe thunderstorms in zone 4, which is the southeast region. I didn't have anything for the Mid-Atlantic, but there will be some there will be some severe weather in the Carolinas as well with this particular storm system. So going forward in the month of September, I do think that there's potential for a tropical system or a hurricane sometime between the 10th and 13th of September, and then at the very end of the month. We're in a pretty active pattern with what's called the, and I can share my screen here, called the MJO, the Madden-Julian oscillation, which meteorologists tend to use to look at the potential for, in the wintertime, cold weather and the potential for snow, but in the summertime, the potential for where tropical activity would be most likely. And this is a kind of a diagram. Oh, actually, I need to share my screen again. Sorry, I'm not used to it. So if I share this screen right here, you'll see the diagram. You'll probably see that this kind of phase diagram right here. If you recall, back when the Olympics were going on, and of course I'm running short on time, so I've got to speed up here. There was a lot of tropical activity in the West Pacific, and you probably heard the announcers talking about the track of a typhoon that was close to Tokyo. Well, that's because we were in phase 6 and 7 of this particular oscillation, which favors typhoons in the West Pacific. But now with these dots, you can see these dots, the concentration of them is in phase 2 and phase 3, and then it goes up to phase 4 and phase 5. Phase 1 through 3 favor multiple storms in the Atlantic basin, which includes the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. So we are going to be staying in a fairly active pattern, I think, for September with these tropical systems. And the further away from this main circle these dots are, the more active the convection would be, or more active the tropical season would be. Again, that's in the summer and the fall. You look at this a little bit differently in the wintertime, but so we're in an active phase 2 and 3, which does favor the potential for more tropical systems. And like I said, in the Almanac, I had 2 systems here in September later in the month. So the southeast region will continue to have above average rainfall, I think, going through the month of September. It's been a very interesting summer, though. I don't know about you, but it's been one of the more humid summers I can remember in a long time.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable, and it was quite dry here through July. I find the cumulative rainfall maps that you put up pretty useful. So
Yeah, right. It has been. If you look at the month of August, it's been above average in the Fredericksburg area. If I go back, I can't go back. Well, I can go back to 90 days, which would be at the start of summer. But yeah, there was a period in July where it was dry. That's for sure.
but now it is, so then the air is holding as much moisture as it can now.
Yeah,
Correct?
the air, right. Yeah, it's called-
Saturated.
yeah, the air is saturated. The dew points are in the 70s. Anytime the dew points get above 70, it feels pretty uncomfortable outside. So the dew point this month has been pretty high in the Fredericksburg area. But as I talked about earlier, what's called the precipitable water, which tends during the year, it tends to peak in late July, because that's when you typically have the hottest weather in the summer. And the hotter the temperatures are, the more moisture it can hold. But once we get into late August and early September, traditionally the temperatures go down a bit and the precipitable water amounts go down. But right now we're at a very high, almost historic high number for this time of the year. And that's why this storm system is going to be unleashing some very heavy rain and downpours.
Yeah, because I went outside this morning and the temperature was in the low 70s and
But
the
it's
dew was everywhere. It was like it just rained or something.
Yeah, it's been.
And it was just dew.
Yeah, exactly, because the air has been so tropical in nature. It's been and that's one of the items I mentioned in an article in the 2022 Almanack, is how the most recent 30-year averages have favored warmer summers. And part of that's because nighttime lows have been milder the last 30 years, and that's attributed to higher dew points. Temperature will never go below the dew point. So if the dew point is in the low 70s and you don't have a change of air mass coming in to bring drier air, then you're going to have your overnight lows in the 70s. But I'll tell you what, after the system moves through and the dew points drop, it's going to feel remarkably nicer outside. Dew points down the 50s and 60s. It's going to be a big change in air mass.
I look forward to that.
Yeah. Well, there's less than a minute here, and I don't want anybody to be cut off.
Well, excellent job again, Chad. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And
Very
thank
much
you so much.
appreciated.
Thank you for what's your name again? Flandy Moore?
Oh, Frank
Frank.
Landemore. Yeah.
Okay, Frank. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Yep, thank you so much.
All right. Well, I guess I'll conclude it here before I get cut off. So everyone have a good afternoon, and if this gets some good hits, maybe we can do this again in the future.